Good morning, everybody. Does anybody remember? Now this will tell me how old you are. The song goes, "Oh, the bones, oh, the bones, oh, the G-jumping bones, oh, the bones, oh, the bones, oh, the." Anybody know that song? G-jumping bones, oh, the. Okay, yeah, 12 bars. Because there was a song. When I was a child, the way I knew about Ezekiel was because of that song. Because the thigh bone connected to the hip bone, and the hip bone connected to the ankle bone. Yeah, okay, see, does anybody know that? Now, the song that's actually going through my head this morning was, I see. Forever young, I want to be forever young. So I'm going, yeah, that's the hymn of our generation, actually, or, yeah, all of our generations. All right, so I want to start out today with a little testimony. What you're going to hear is what I hope happens to all of you at least some of the time, because we need fresh encounters with God. You're actually designed for it. It's supposed to happen. Life in the Old Testament is understood as being with God. And the curse of the fall is that most people feel cut off from God. The good news is, because of Jesus and the Holy Spirit, we can be reconnected to God on a regular basis. But it doesn't just happen. Just like no relationship happens. I mean, well, they do in a way. But you have to pursue being in the presence of the Lord. And that's what I wanted to give. I'm trying to give you a tool you can use for the rest of your life. So you're learning a lot about the Old Testament, but basically you're learning a way to connect with God on a regular basis. In the physical world, if you want to get strong, you do a little bit every day. You don't do 500 push-ups on one day. You'd kill yourself. But you do, 10, 15, 20 over a period of time, and you get stronger. And it's the same way with a relationship. So you learn how to listen to God, so you can discern His voice from all the other crazy voices in your head, all the other voices outside your head. And you learn the cadence and the sound and the feel of God's voice. You also realize, oh no, that's not for Him. He doesn't say that. But there's a way that God works, and you pick up on that. Reading the Bible is learning how God speaks, and then you're open to Him speaking to you, because it will come directly through the thing you're reading, but then it also teaches you how to listen in all the times when you don't have a text in front of you. So, that being said, I want to invite Emma up, because she came up, told me something this morning, and I think it's really awesome. So come on up here, Emma. You got to stand here where the camera can see you.
Well, yeah, I was being here like in the Jeremiah, when we did Jeremiah 1, and then I did the homework later that week. And I was just going through the motions, just doing the homework. I didn't think anything special about it. And then the day afterwards, I'm like in this crazy encounter, and it's actually very similar to like what Jeremiah experienced. And then I realized that as I was doing my homework, I was actually like prophesying basically over what happened to me the next day. And then I'm doing and I was hearing the Isaiah one, and I do the same thing, and I do the homework, and I didn't think anything about it. I was like, oh, homework, And then the day afterwards, I realized, oh, this prophesied over me again, over what the encounter, and I just realized that there's so many of these truths, like the Lord's like calling me to do crazy things, and I feel like I'm not inadequate at all, and like I can't do these things. And then I remember like everything I learned through like these two chapters, where I'm like, oh, actually, the Lord has qualified me to do this, and it's so cool to see how His character is the same in these chapters in the Bible. That's like so long ago, and that He's meeting me in the same way, in the same character, like He's still the same. And it's just a really cool experience.
Yeah, way to go. Awesome. Okay. That's true. Well, if you thought those were good, the one we're going to do today is kind of off the chart. What we're going to focus on today is Ezekiel. And I had a different picture I've used in the past, but this is the one that I thought I'd use today. This is not a cute picture. These bones, this looks pretty ugly. And when you think about it, it's sort of like concentrated death, like it's all in one place, all these bones. somewhere in the last 5 or 6 years, archaeologists have discovered all over Europe giant graveyards, and they have hundreds to thousands of skeletons in them. The most of these people seem to have died violent deaths, and they were almost exclusively men between the ages of about 17 and 35. So there was a huge drop in the number of men in Europe at a certain point. And we don't know everything behind it, but it shows up everywhere. It's not just in one particular country, it's all over the place. And what they found were these bones. Not so much in a pile. Like this is sort of undifferentiated, the skeleton, but they found them anyway. So finding a pile of bones is a thing, and so we're gonna as you encounter this, we're gonna walk through this experience with Ezekiel, and then we're gonna come back and talk about it. And today, what I'm hoping you're going to come away with would be. When did Ezekiel prophesy? What was going on? That's always important. You want to know the context. What's the big picture? Because God is doing something very specific in and through Ezekiel, and I think it's really powerful and unique. And we're going to talk about that. The other thing I always want you to look for is what allusions to the Old Testament and the New Testament do you pick up on? I want you to learn how to see the patterns. The patterns begin in Genesis, in the first 11 chapters of Genesis, and that is kind of like it's like a grammar of how to read symbolism in the Bible, because God does things and they become kind of like a decoder ring or something. It's a way to understand what's going on in the rest of the Bible. So I want to see if you can pick up on. The other cool thing is that when I ask you this, you come up with stuff on the go. I never thought of that before. That's really because you're very creative. What's a progression, a theological progression? There is a theological progression in the Bible. It's not exactly A to B. It bounces back and forth, but there is a general kind of a progression, because no human being can know everything about who God is and what he's really like. We have to learn through a process. And we learn in two ways. You have to learn this as an individual. You actually have to learn how to listen to God and then how to trust him and act in him. And Ezekiel's an example of that, but also groups of people, churches, organizations, families also have a learning curve. And Israel is discovering a God no one else in the world knew. I mean, you have to bring that back into your head. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay. And then what was Yahweh doing by giving Ezekiel these profound experiences? There's a huge agenda going on here, and it's really, really important. The cool thing I wanted to pick up on what Emma said is something I learned from Dallas Willard, who is, in the Lutheran circles we say he's in the church triumphant, so he's now with Jesus in some way I don't quite understand, but he's there. And he said this, that all of the encounters in the Bible are potentially for you, every single one of them. If you take the time to read them and meditate on them, they become your encounter. And so no one person could give you all of these, but in the Bible you get this incredible spread of different kinds of encounters, which means that you can have a life in God that maybe David never had. Because you get the benefit of all of these other examples, and they're there for you. So anyway, well, let's go to the Bible. Thank you, Dr. Griffin. I thought you were never going to do that. Okay. All right, sit back in your seats. Put your trays in the full upright position. Buckle up. This is crazy. Yeah, it's not going to be a hard landing, but it is going to work. This is a bouncy passage. There's just a lot in it. Holy Spirit, you're the one who inspired you. You're mentioned in here in a very direct way. We are now some, 2,700 years later, we're reading these passages, and we want you to speak to us with a word that stands out, a phrase, a sentence, or an image, or all of the above. Or maybe you're just going to give us a question, a burning question that only you can answer. Thank you, Lord. The hand of Yahweh was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and placed me in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. He made me walk around among them. I realized there were a great many bones in the valley, and they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I said to him, Sovereign Yahweh, you know. Then he said to me, Prophesy over these bones and tell them, Dry bones, listen to Yahweh's message. This is what Sovereign Yahweh says to these bones. Look, I'm about to infuse breath into you, and you will live. I will put tendons on you and muscles over you, and will cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will live. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. So I prophesied as I was commanded. There was a sound when I prophesied. I heard a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to bone. As I watched, I saw tendons on them. Then muscles appeared, and skin covered them from above, but there was no breath in them. He said to me, Prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, Son of Man, and say to the breath, This is what the Lord Yahweh says. Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe on these corpses so that they may live. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood on their feet, an extremely great army. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are all the house of Israel. Look, they are saying, Our bones are dry. Our hope has perished. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and tell them, This is what Sovereign Yahweh says. Look, I'm about to open your graves, and I will raise you from your graves, my people. I will bring you to the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Yahweh when I open your graves and raise you from your graves, my people. I will place my breath in you, and you will live. I will give you rest in your own land. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. I have spoken, and I will act, declares Yahweh. Second time through. The power of Yahweh was all over me, and he brought me out by Spirit of Yahweh and placed me in the middle of a valley, and it was full of bones. He made me walk all around among them. And then look, there were a great many bones in the valley, and they were extremely dry. And he said to me, Human, can these bones come alive? And I said, Sovereign Yahweh, you alone know. Then he said to me, Prophesy over these bones and tell them, Dry bones, obey the Lord's message. This is what the Sovereign Yahweh says to these bones. Look, I am about to infuse breath into you, and you will live. I will put tendons on you and muscles over you, and will cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will live. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. So I prophesied as I was commanded. There was a sound when I prophesied, a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to bone. As I watched, I saw tendons on them, and then muscles appeared, and skin covered over them from above, but there was no spirit in them. He said to me, Prophesy to the Spirit, prophesy, Son of Man, and say to the Spirit, This is what Sovereign Yahweh says, Come from the four spirits, O breath, and breathe on these corpses so they may live. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and the Spirit came into them, and they lived and stood on their feet, a huge army. Then he said to me, Human, these bones are the house of Israel. Look, they are saying, Our bones are dry, we are dead, our hope has perished, we are cut off. So prophesy and tell them, This is what the Sovereign Yahweh says. Look, I'm about to open your graves, and I will raise you from your graves, my people. I will bring you to the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Yahweh, when I open your graves and raise you from your graves, my people, I will place my spirit in you, and you will live. I will give you rest in your own land. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. I have spoken, and I will act, declares Yahweh. The power of Yahweh fell heavy on me, and he brought me out by wind of Yahweh and placed me in the midst of the valley, and it was totally filled with bones. He made me walk around among them, and I realized that there were a great many bones in the valley, and they were extremely dry. He said to me, "Human, can these bones live?" And I said to him, "Sovereign Yahweh, you know." Then he said to me, "Prophesy over these bones and tell them, dry bones, obey the Lord's message. This is what the sovereign Yahweh says to these bones. Look, I am about to infuse spirit into you, and you will live. I will put tendons on you and muscles over you, and will cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will live. Then you will know that I am Yahweh." So I prophesied as I was commanded. There was a sound when I prophesied. I heard a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to bone. And as I watched, I saw tendons on them. Then muscles appeared, and skin covered over them from above. But there was no breath in them. And he said to me, "Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, human, and say to the breath, this is what the sovereign Yahweh says. Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe on these corpses so that they may live." So I prophesied as I was commanded, and breath came into them, and they lived and stood on their feet, an extremely great army. And then he said to me, "Human, these bones are all the house of Israel. Look, they are saying, our bones are dry, our hope has perished, we are cut off from life. So prophesy and tell them, this is what the sovereign Yahweh says. Look, I'm about to open your graves, and I will raise you from your graves, my people. I will bring you to the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Yahweh when I open your graves and raise you from your graves, my people. I will place my breath in you, and you will live. I will give you rest in your own land. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. I have spoken, and I will act, declares Yahweh." So, 3 minutes on your own. Okay, so 3 minutes in your groups. Go ahead.
Yeah. Feeling new, ready? Should I start or? Oh, that's a lot. Okay, wait. Okay,
Especially that you saw the connection with Genesis. That's why you saw he switched.
We already shared. I was wondering what the army was because, and I was googling how much does the body need to dissolve to bones, and like if it is the house of Israel, when does it happen? Which army? I don't know.
Well, the question is, what is the valley? Because if you know what the valley is, and then you'd have an idea of where the bones came from, and the Hebrew and the way Hebrew works is that it has a certain meaning, but it can mean multiple things at one time, and they sometimes want it to do that.
Do
So.
you think it's something the people are like a few years ago that it happened, they die, or something like way before? Or do you even think of it? I don't know. It's just...
Well, it starts out as a metaphor. So it starts as a metaphor and it becomes metaphysical. It becomes real. Because Yahweh is teaching his people through Ezekiel to see reality a whole new way. It was in certain ideas, but you'll see where it goes. So. Okay, sorry. All right, so Dylan, pick somebody out that you said that you think they should share what they got. So, okay.
I just thought it was interesting. I kind of thought about Genesis 2:7 when the Lord breathed life into Adam.
Ooh, good one.
And also just noticing that whether they had skin and flesh on them or they were dry bones, neither of them had life until the breath of God was in them. So it's whether it's something looks alive or it looks dead. We don't have the Spirit of God. We aren't alive without the Spirit.
Okay, very good. Very good. That's really good. You're beginning to pick up. That's the kind of thing that the ancient Hebrew would do. They'd pick up on that. It's like you hear a new song and you go, I've heard that somewhere before. And that I think there's definitely a connection there. This is true of Ezekiel in general. Ezekiel is, I have a friend who's devoted his life to studying the book of Ezekiel because it has everything in it. It has the Torah. The Torah shows up over and over again. It has, it's one of the core prophetic books, and it's also a pivot point where you go from prophetic to apocalyptic. It's just absolutely amazing. And it's highly structured. It's beautifully written. And it's just amazing. So, and my friend taught Tim Mackey Hebrew. If you know who Tim Mackey is, I thought that was pretty cool when I found that out. So, okay, so somebody else.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how, the Lord asks him, "Son of man, can these bones live?" And he answers, "Oh Lord God, you know." And I think I just had curiosity around,
Okay.
is he saying, "Oh Lord God, you know," because he hasn't got a revelation of resurrection, or is he not wanting to speak unbelief? So he's
That's
like,
a good question.
God,
That's a good question.
I'll speak what you say.
Is it a cop out, or is it simply saying the truth,
Yeah.
or something else? Yeah. The best way to find out is to read on, because usually what you don't understand at the beginning will become clearer as you go on, or the context. Those are kinds of questions you want to pay attention to. And we'll come back to this because as we read through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in all these encounters, I see partnership, and this encounter reminded me of the verse, "I only do what I see my Father do," and how God says to Ezekiel, "Prophesy," but he also gives him the whole word. And when God says the word, nothing happens, but when Ezekiel says the word, things start happening. So I see empowerment. God is empowering Ezekiel, when he follows
Yep.
his instructions and the word
Yep.
God is saying to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good. That's the kind of observation you want to be making about the text. You're seeing the bigger picture. What's happening here? That's why I want you to go with paraphrases, because as you paraphrase, you start to realize, oh, it's actually about this. On the one hand, I'm trying to think of a metaphor here. It's important to be able to study the biology of a single tree in a forest, but the other thing is to see the shape of the forest. Where is it in a valley? Is it on a mountain? How's the whole forest doing? And you want to be able to do both. So good. All right. Yeah.
One parallel is Psalm 23. The Spirit of the Lord is the shepherd who actually leads us into the valley of the shadow of death, because he wants us to be surrounded by death so that we can speak life into it, because life is more powerful.
Oh, wow.
And then you see that kind of fulfilled in John 20, Jesus after the resurrection breathes into his disciples the new creation, the Genesis 2.
Yeah.
And the question I wanted is this along the right lines? Whenever the flesh vessel was prepared, the sinew, the muscles, all that came to be, but the spirit wasn't yet in it. Is that speaking of the law was actually prepared vessels to be recipients of life, but couldn't impart the life that it promised? And it wasn't until the Messiah would come and raise from the dead and give the Spirit that those vessels that were prepared could actually come alive.
Wow. I'm not sure if I actually got all of that, but the second part, definitely yes, because this is Ezekiel. Jeremiah talks about what the people of God need is they need a Torah written into their heart, which is not, they didn't think of this thing, this muscle, they didn't know that that's what pumped your blood, but they did have the idea of the heart as the center of your creative will, and it's the way you look at reality. So they knew that much. Ezekiel's saying the same thing, but in a different way, because heart and spirit in biblical anthropology are pretty much interchangeable. So it is a programming. It's a programming of you. That's too mechanical. It's a new heart, because Ezekiel's talking about a heart of flesh, which is basically run by the Spirit. So it's a radical new way to be human, and Ezekiel's actually showcasing it for us. He's like the model. Here's how you do it. So he's a picture of the future. his own future, the future of Israel, and your future. So, yeah. Okay, anybody else? Okay. I have the most amazing third years this year. They're just, yeah, Neil.
One thing I noticed at the end of the passage was it sounds like the resurrection, where it talks about him opening graves and then the putting his spirit on people. Sounds like it's sort of prophesying.
Sure does, doesn't it? Kinda, yeah, just kinda. Okay. Very good. We're if I don't mention it, we need to come back to that, because that's one of the connections that goes forward, and you have to kind of see the development. I've got it set up so we'll go that direction, but I might need help remembering that. Yeah, Josiah.
I just thought it was interesting because I feel like in modern Western Christianity, there's kind of this Old Testament God and New Testament God dichotomy where like suddenly God got a lot nicer once his son died.
Oh my gosh, I said that. Wait, no, he got nicer when his son died. That's just, you made me drop my pens, man. Okay.
But I think it's clear, you read through Isaiah or Jeremiah and the prophets, and I think you see like this isn't written to us, but it's written for us, and what we capture is a glimpse of the eternal nature of God, which is we serve a God of redemption, we serve a God of resurrection. And so I find it interesting with like, if this is one case of many where you actually see that God hasn't changed, he has a sense of justice that is fulfilled by Christ, but he still is the God who forgives and redeems and resurrects today was the God back then, and I think it's a beautiful display in this passage that you might be dead, long dead, parts of your life might be long dead, but God still wants to breathe on it.
Okay.
A beautiful picture.
Okay, he got nicer when his son died. Just I'm thinking, actually, that's sort of, I would call that street Christology. There's a lot of people who go, yeah, well, after he killed his son, he got better. like oh man, we got to talk. Yeah, okay. I go. I'm sure there. I mean, the irony is there's probably a lot of Christians that believe that, which is, sort of sad. But yes, okay. Uh-huh. We're going to talk about that. Very good. Very good. Yeah. That's part of, we'll come back to that. If I don't mention it, please remind me. All right, let's start walking through this here. The challenge of making a translation is that Hebrew, generally speaking, has a lot fewer words than English, but more meanings to the words. So one word can serve multiple purposes, and sometimes they're sort of, all those meanings come together at once. The challenge here is that the word for hand, so this is the word, where is it? Yad, the hand of the Lord. It was upon me, the hand of the Lord. The hand is a symbol of power. And we actually, like, you're in my hands now. Ooh, careful. It means that he's in the power of Yahweh. So it is did he actually, so some people go, because I can think of my children when they were in kindergarten. So did God hold him in his hand? And I'm going, that's not bad. Or like a chess piece or something like that. Yeah, there you go. Ooh, okay. But it's power. I'm going to put you into the hand of so-and-so. I'm putting you into somebody's power. And that's both it's metaphorical, but because if people grab you, you're in their power, or it could be that way. So I translated, when I read this thing, I know the Hebrew, so I will play with the words a little bit. I don't know if you picked up on that, because sometimes I said wind, sometimes I said breath, and sometimes I said spirit. Because in Hebrew, it's one word. And you have to, and it's kind of all of them, depending on the context, it's more one than another. All right, so the power of Yahweh was on me, upon me. So is he describing, it sounds like, let's read on, because we have to sort of figure out what's going on. He brought me out by the Spirit. Actually, it doesn't say the Spirit. It says he brought me out with Spirit, or in Spirit, or by Spirit. So, or is he saying by breath, by wind? There's this great scene in, I forget which one of the books it is. It's the Chronicles of Narnia, and the children are standing on a cliff, and Aslan breathes on them, and they fly across the Narnia, and they're caught up in this thing, and then they land. And I'm going, I like that metaphor. So are we talking about he doesn't really go into depth on this. So he's brought out in spirit, by Spirit. All right. The cool thing is he doesn't really define it, but what he's getting across here is that this was not something I made up. I'm caught up in something, and it's beautiful and wonderful and a bit scary to me. All right, that's one way I would put it. And placed me in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. All right. Now, it does have the definite article, the valley. What valley is he talking about? What's that? Okay, so it's a more of a metaphorical, symbolic kind of thing, but it has meaning, okay? What's that? Yep, it's Hinnom. Because there actually are a lot of bones there. And the sad thing is most of the bones are of infants. It is a valley filled with bones. Now, bones, you brought up, there's a kind of universal, did everybody pick up on that? Okay, so the Valley of Hinnom, Hinnom, or in Hebrew it's Het Nun Mem, Hinnom. I write in code so I can remind myself, because most of you can't read Hebrew yet, so. Some of you can read Greek or on your way there. So. What happened in the Valley of Hinnom? This actually ties directly into what Ezekiel's talking about. Because Ezekiel, Isaiah, and Jeremiah are all, they're not really contemporaries, that's not fair. Well, Isaiah and Jeremiah, it depends on how you understand Isaiah. What happened in the Valley of Hinnom? Yeah. Yep. So you have, and this becomes, it's actually Gehinnom, which becomes Gehenna in the New Testament. Yeah, that one. The place that stinks of death. Because you have infants, and probably a lot of other people, sacrificed there. So it is full of bones. Now, is it like, does it mean exactly, oh, he only went to that valley? Well, then those bones would be really small. How could there be a great army? I mean, you're missing the point here. Bones, so think, this would be a good exercise for you. Go look up all the time the word bone or bones shows up in the Old and New Testament, mostly in the Old Testament. Your bones are very close to the essential you. There's this weird story where people are digging a grave and a dead person's body touches whose bones? Elijah's bones, and he comes back to life. That is the weirdest. That's like, I don't know how that happened. There's something going on there. But bones are, my bones were crushed, or my bones ached, or I felt it in my bones. So your bones are not just, for us we're going, okay, it's the calcium and there are other rare minerals. It's the calcium, and it basically is your endoskeleton that provides you with the ability to walk upright, and it's a better way to live rather than an exoskeleton, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, that's true. But this essentially means that your bones are the deepest, they're a deep part of you. They represent the essence of you in a way, the physical part of you, because they feel everything you go through. If you had a broken bone, you couldn't serve as a priest. So bones are really, really important. And this is my guess. I think Zach's right. I think it's the Valley of Hinnom. At least if they say the valley and it's got bones in it, that would probably come to people's mind. Now, this has, in the ancient world, your bones were very important. So you collect a person's bones. What do we know happens in Genesis to the bones of Jacob? What do they do with his bones? They bring him out of Egypt back to Canaan, back to Palestine, because the bones are really important. And you can see this all the way up to today. In a lot of Jewish cemeteries, they don't have caskets, they have ossuaries. So it's a box about this big, and they put your bones in it. So you die, they put you, because this is the way they did it at the time of Jesus. It was true for a long time. They put the body in there, and basically all of it well, get ahead of myself. What you get here is, it's like playing the tape backwards, because what goes away first on a corpse? The skin, then the muscles, then your sinews, and the only thing that's left is a bone. So this is playing the video in reverse. So, I mean, that's going on in their mind. So what you get at the end, you get a box of bones. And so it's very efficient, it saves space. But your bones are the essential you. You want to hold on to those. It's a very, very, it's deeply profound. So there were times when there were, I looked this up. By the way, I don't know everything. I just read a lot. And I read stuff you can read. If you read the commentaries on this, you can know as much. The language part, maybe not so much. That would take a little longer. But the commentaries talk about battles where the Assyrians came in and they would wipe out an army, and as the ultimate insult, they wouldn't bury them. They would leave them there. So the ravens and crows come and eat them, pick them dry, and their bones are left there. It's a way of saying, if you mess with us, this will happen to you. The same thing happened with crucifixions often. The bodies were simply left on the cross until they rotted and fell to the ground. That Jesus was taken down, that was an honor. It was a way of honoring him. The thieves, their bodies were probably just dumped in a convenient hole that's next to the cross, and they eventually turned to bones. So a valley full of bones, if you walked up on a valley full of bones, this would be the equivalent of the worst horror movie you've ever seen. It's not as though Ezekiel's going, well, isn't that interesting? There's a lot of calcified endoskeletons laying out here. I mean, he just didn't look at it. This is freaky to him. This is really weird, because it's the ultimate insult, and it's symbolic for, and it says, no, isn't the bones were there? They're really dry. In other words, they've been there for a long time, and they are really dead. Okay? Okay. He made me walk around among them. That's, was it crunchy? I don't know. Why does, well, I mean, actually, if you follow the logic of the story, what happens when he walks around among them? What conclusion does he come to? There's a lot of them, and they're really dead. So the question is, was he actually in a valley walking around among bones? Because technically speaking, let me see if we can go here on this one. Technically speaking, he's here. Nope, sorry. Yeah, so he's over here. That's where he gets transported, not the way you'd want. He's one of these people. He's taken prisoner and literally transported or force marched to Babylon. Was basically Babylon over here, and he's on the course of a river, and because that's where the book starts out, that he's on the banks of this river. He's a prisoner. So is he walking through a valley somewhere around there? Was it a graveyard where Jews? I mean, we don't know, but it's so vivid to him. Is it an actual graveyard or is it a vision? Could it be both? Could it be a vision that's so realistic that he feels the bones crunch? Sounds like it. This is a hyper visionary experience. I don't think, well, did the Holy Spirit transport him back to the Valley of Hinnom? I don't know, but because it calls it the valley, that would make sense. That he's somehow walking through this valley of death. And it's not, oh, isn't that interesting? It's like he's freaking out. And actually, this is still a thing today. We have these, the favorite movie today, well, they're called zombies, and they're basically skeletons that have sinews and bone on them, and they're somehow alive, but they're not quite human. That freaks us out. But skeletons still have a lot of scare power for us. Yeah, Dylan.
When they get to the New Testament and they read about Philip just kind of teleporting, are they supposed to think the same thing here?
I don't know.
Transporting in the Spirit?
I don't know, because it isn't really clear. Here's a problem for us. The primary and secondary socialization that we've all had is that the world is really material and not much else. And we have to go through a tertiary process, and that's why we read the Bible, is that no, actually there's a lot more going on than GPS and calcium and phosphate. Those aren't wrong, they're just not everything. And it is so vivid to him, he's there. That's the best way I could describe it. You've had these experiences. They're called dreams. They're so vivid, it wakes you up. You can feel. I've never had a dream where I could smell stuff, but I've had dreams where it's so real, it freaks me out. I'm touching something and it's touching me. Okay, well, it was your bed covers, or your socks were on too tight. Yeah, maybe, or you ate too late. And those play a role. But the problem is not his experience; it's our struggling to understand this. It would have been much more accessible to an ancient person. Most people who grow up in what are called basic cultures, they relate to this stuff immediately. Like, oh yeah, okay, but you've had dreams like this. I don't know if you had now vision is more of a waking kind of thing, where you're awake and but it's so vivid and so real, he's there. And I hesitate to say, oh, it's just a vision, because in our way of thinking, oh yeah, it's kind of secondary. It's just that thing in your head. It's not real, because there's no GPS, and I can't go out and measure how many bones are. Anyway, so that's our problem as a culture. What happens though often is that he starts out with he sees this picture of Yahweh in a kind of spaceship flying out of Jerusalem. But we'll come back to that, because it's crazy. Okay, all right. He made me walk around them. So intensification of the experience. And I realized, or behold, there were a great many bones in the valley. Because when he walks through it, he realizes the extent of these bones. So it's not just a little pile of bones. The whole valley's full of them. How deep? I don't know. I'm thinking of the questions that my 5-year-old children would ask me. Well, were the bones like 3 feet deep, or would they stumble through? I don't know. Okay. But he's walking around in them, and what he realizes is like, oh my gosh, they're really, really dry, so they are extremely dead. And then he said to me, now this phrase, Son of Man, okay, think in your head, think. Where have you heard that phrase, Son of Man? Who uses it to describe himself? Could it be Jesus? Yeah. What it means actually in the way Hebrew works is a son of something, a son of whatever, means a creature in the category of. It's like a description. So a son of a bull would be a what? A calf. A son of a sheep would be a lamb. Okay? So it means something of a category. So basically, a son of man. Well, let's back up to even more, because behind this word is this word, son of Adam. Now it shows up one other place that we're going to get to. We haven't gotten there yet. Where does this phrase, son of man, it's a major Old Testament citation, or Daniel. And one like a son of man. So on the one hand, it's a designation of, he's basically saying human. That's why I said human. This is different from a son of God. A son of God would be a divine being of some kind. Somebody of the category of the divine beings. This is someone of the category of the humans, because the humans are the ones who stand on earth and poke their heads into heaven. We're kind of spiritual amphibians in a way, because we do both, automatically. All right, so it has Adam in here, and if you say, again, this is the way Hebrew works, son of Adam, this actually shows up in C.S. Lewis's In Chronicles of Narnia. You have Caspian saying son of Adam and daughter of Eve, okay, which I think is a really cool thing. So if you hear the word Adam, what is it? Again, this is think like a Hebrew. What is it reminding you of? Eden, the first Adam. You can't get away from it. And behind it is Adamah, which means red earth. So actually, if you wanted to get it across, Adam's name would be Rusty, because he comes from a rust-colored place. So, I mean, that'd be one way to get the joke across in English. Okay, so so human being, can these bones live? All right, now let's explore this for a minute. Before we get into anything, what's the basic understanding of what happens to you? If you're in the ancient Near East, what happens to you when you die? You go to Sheol. And you just hang out there for a while, and then when you like, you come back? Yeah. Happy hour. It's happy hour.
You go swimming in the waters down there.
Well, Hades is a little different. Hades goes, that has its own. You never come back. If you're in Sheol, you're gone. There's only one mention of someone kind of coming back, and that is whom and how. It's the weirdest thing. It has to do with, anybody know where it is, where it happened? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So she is one who calls on spirits, and Saul wants to have one more conference with Samuel, and Samuel comes back, and he's not happy. And that is the weirdest thing, because it had to happen because it is so one-off. It is so weird. How did that happen? I don't know. I mean, I'm doing the best I can to understand heaven and earth right now. The ones I live in, the big picture, I don't have that. So you go to Sheol and you never come back. Your bones, we want to take care of them and respect them, but basically, death is a one-way ticket. It's a one-way experience. All right. Now, this is interesting because in the ancient Near East, humans can die. Can gods die? I don't know if this is why you need to read the Epic of Gilgamesh. In the ancient Near East, you have gods killing other gods. So Marduk kills Tiamat. She is the goddess of the sea and chaos. And he cuts her open, and with the one side of her, he makes and with the other side, he makes the waters under the earth. So gods can die. They engage in combat, and they can die. And this is a huge difference. Yahweh cannot die. You can't kill him. The problem is that in most people's heads, gods can die. How do you tell a group of people who are convinced that gods die and they engage in combat that you're not like that at all? Well, this is one way you do it. Okay. So I realized a great many bones. He said to me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" The automatic answer should be, the answer that everybody would answer would be, starts with an N, no. Okay, because Ezekiel knows there's something going on here. There may be something else here. Okay. And it says, so sovereign Yahweh, Now, this is interesting. In English, you have to use the pronouns with the verbs. You can't just say no. You have to say you know, I know, we know. All right. In Hebrew, the word, like Spanish and Portuguese and a lot of languages, the pronoun's bound up in the verb. Sabes, you know. In Hebrew, you don't have to use the pronoun, but it's there. So it emphasizes it's you know. What is he getting at there? Is it a cop-out? Is it the truth? How many say it's a cop-out? He just doesn't want to say. I'm curious. Anybody say it's a cop-out? He's afraid to answer? Everybody's looking around.
I think he cops out and at the same time he's like, this Satan's bad.
I don't think so, but you know what? You can do all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, okay. By this time he's kind of, his hand is halfway.
Logic's already thrown out the window, so sure.
Yeah. Okay, so, and now here's the kicker. The verb that's used here has more, when we think of the word know, because of the tradition that Greek philosophy has in our culture, we think of knowing as a kind of an abstract thing we do with math and philosophy. This isn't like that. This is yada, which means to know from personal experience. So he really doesn't know, but Yahweh does. He's uttered the truth. It's an interesting phrase because Yahweh does know. He's got more experience than me. There's something going on here. What's that?
I said I immediately thought of the biblical to know someone. And so, God, you know.
Oh, Dylan. Okay, 50 push-ups right here, man. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's intimate personal knowledge. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I hope you all get married and have that someday. It's wonderful. So, just saying. Okay. Okay. All right. He said to me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Generally speaking, bones can't live. Once you get that far, you're gone. All right. That's the common wisdom. This is the thing. Yahweh and then Jesus also, because you see this in Jesus' ministry. There's common wisdom. We all know that when you die, you're gone. Now, the interesting thing is that in the ancient world and in most of what we call basic cultures today, you die, but something about you continues on. You have some kind of afterlife, and that would be Sheol. If you're lucky to live in the Western world, we go, nope, that's it. You're just gone. You don't have any afterlife. You know, goodbye, nice seeing you. And so then you get songs like Forever Young, because I want to stay forever. I don't ever want to die. I just want to stay forever young. Thank you, Botox. Okay. Yeah. Well, because I look young then, when my lips are swollen or whatever, you know. So, okay. So then he said to me, prophesy over these bones and tell them, dry bones, listen to Yahweh's message. All right. So prophesy can be put in the form of a command, and that's what it is here. What do you normally think of prophecy? So prophecy is normally what? What does a prophet do? He gives a message from God. So he's kind of like a little bit like a telephone wire. He has access to the divine counsel. He hears the message and reports it. What is this? It's different. And this is huge. Now, I could be wrong on this, but my recollection is this is the first time this has ever happened. So it isn't give a message, it's bring a message to life. He's not relaying what God is doing. He's the means by which it happens. All right, pattern recognition. Where have you seen this before? Adam. Where? Right. So what you have, this is a pattern. This is a really important pattern here. The average so we go back to my third years love this when I do this diagram because they come up with all these different versions of it. All right. So in the ancient world, and I argue it's still this way, it's just the model's changed a little bit. You have a god of some kind, and there's a ruler over this. There's a ruler who's been appointed by the god, and it's a king. This person is usually a king, or the king and his prophets and his priests. But they are basically extensions of the king. And what they do is they consult the God. They get on the inside of the divine council and they find out what's going on. They get some revelation, and then they relay it, and they do things with the land. But this one is actually goes, and well, do you have this pattern in Genesis? Yes or no? How many say yes, you do have it in Genesis? Yeah. Okay, every hand should go up, yeah. You see it there, but it's a different kind of pattern because it isn't just the king, it's everyone is supposed to do this. Every human is the viceroy of the king. Every human is to bring the word of God to earth. Every human accesses heaven and brings it to earth. That's what you all do. You do it even when you don't want to. That's why you're both dangerous and wonderful. Because you don't know that you're doing it most of the time. But that's what we're supposed to do. So, God wants human beings to carry out his will. He could do it otherwise, but he seems to deputize all the time. He has invisible deputies or invisible viceroys, and we call them angels. Actually, that's a generic term for a messenger because there's cherubim and seraphim and all these other eames. There's all kinds of there's a whole menagerie of different kinds of angelic beings, and they do different kinds of things, and they are ranked according to order and power, that kind of thing. But this is the general pattern. So it isn't just the king. Every human is supposed to do this, and this is very radical for the ancient Near East because, generally speaking, it was the king's prerogative to bring the will of the God to earth. But what God has done in Israel is an entire nation is supposed to do that. They're supposed to play that role. The problem is that they've messed up in that, and it's not working the way it's supposed to. But this is a basic pattern. So Ezekiel is given things to say, and then he has to say them. So here, I mean, you just have to think of this has never happened before. I mean, if you can find a place where somebody, Moses there's a little bit there, hold your staff up. He's an intermediary. I mean, he does something and the results to it. But he's to prophesy over these bones and tell them, dry bones, listen to Yahweh's message. The word listen, let's see. These bone and say. Shemu. Listen, it doesn't mean like attend to the acoustic sound coming through your ear, because listen means obey. He's commanding the bones to obey. And this is true in a lot of languages. The word for listen also means obey. In English, it's two different words. Although when your mother said, listen to me, she meant actually obey me, and that's a different thing. So, so obey the Lord's message. Where does the power for this come from? From Yahweh himself. Ezekiel is the intermediary, but it's very important. This is the way God works. This is the way he rules. I'm about to infuse breath into you, and you will live. And this is kind of crazy here, because breath is this multifaceted word. It is, let's see, it's spirit. I'll go right there. Okay. It's this word, ruach. And it means breath, wind. The other thing is that it has the whole idea, spirit is the animating life in something. So the wind is invisible animating power, and that's why it's used as a metaphor for God's Spirit, because you can see it, or you can feel it, but you can't see the wind, but you see the effects of it. And God alone has this. He has it in spades, whatever that means. This is what the sovereign Lord said. Look, I'm about to infuse breath into you, and you will live. I will put tendons on you and muscles over you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will live. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Okay, so remember I said a couple minutes ago that actually what you get here is the reverse of what happens when a body decays. You have the bones, then comes the sinews, then the muscles, then the skin. Now you're going, yeah, but what about the brain and the intestines? Okay, all right. It's just a summary here, okay? Because my 5-year-olds would ask me that. And this is really cool here. I will put breath, spirit, life in you, because it can mean all of those, wind, and you will live, and then you will know that I am Yahweh. And the knowing is not just, oh, there is a being by the name of Yahweh, and he has something to do. No, I mean, you actually experience it. The problem with Israel has been that they've worshipped other gods. They have known other gods, and they forgot Yahweh. The infidelity in marriage aspect is really strong. God is a jilted husband whose wife has gone after some other man. I mean, that's the metaphor that's used. So this is partly a call to repentance, but it also means you're going to know that I'm Yahweh. You need to know that because there's no other. I'm not like those others. Okay? So so he hears this as a command, and then he prophesies. So I prophesied as I was commanded. There was a sound when I prophesied. I heard a rattling, and the bones came together. Again, very realistic. Clack, 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 clack. The bones are coming together. So think back to the image. So you've got a skull over here, pieces of a backbone over here, ankle bone, whatever. And the pieces are assembling themselves, which would be kind of scary to see. As I watched, I saw tendons on them, and then muscles appeared, and skin covered over them from above, but there was no breath in them. So Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Humpty's together, but he's not alive. Because they don't have the spirit. So this is an extended metaphor. I could restore you, but if you don't have the spirit, if you don't have my spirit in you, you're not really alive yet. And the idea that, where does this come from? What metaphor, because this is in the background of the mind of the ancient Hebrew, what's the metaphor that's being rung in the background? You've seen this scene before. What happened?
God breathed into Adam.
Yes. And this has kind of interesting, another aspect to it is how did you activate an idol in the ancient world? How did you make an idol into a functioning thing in the religious landscape? You breathed in it. It's called opening the mouth. So God takes that metaphor and turns around and says, no, you're my idol on earth. And that's literally the word. You're my tselem on earth. When people look at you, they'll see me. So he breathes into Adam and makes him alive, and that's what's necessary here. But now it's the first one is breath like CPR breath, so to speak. This is taking that to another whole level. This is not just breath, this is the spirit. Because from here on, human beings will live by God's own life, his own spirit. That's a new thing. That's what's being communicated here. Yeah.
Is this in correlation to when Jesus breathes on his disciples and now you receive
Beautiful.
the Spirit?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And John, the Gospel of John particularly, is the one that plays with all these metaphors because you have Jesus acting like Yahweh. That's why it says the Word became flesh, because he's doing all the things Yahweh does, and people are going, that's random unless he's Yahweh. Oh, I can't, that blows my mind. It should. Okay? All right. So skin covered them, and there was no breath in them. So they can be together, but there's something that's lacking here. And this is the message of Ezekiel over and over again, is that you need a new orienting creative center in you. You need this spirit. You need my spirit. Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, son of man, and say to the breath, or the wind, or This is what the sovereign Yahweh says. Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe on these corpses so that they may live. Four winds. What are the four winds? What's the metaphor there? From every direction. Yeah, the four corners of the earth. There's different ways to look at this. You have the Spirit or the wind of God hovering over the waters at creation, and that Spirit is not just an inanimate thing. It's an aspect of Yahweh Himself, and it's coming from everywhere together at once into these people. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and the breath came into them. They lived and stood on their feet, an extremely great army. Now this, I'm trying to remember now. Have I seen this video? Has Bible Project done this as a video? Have they shown that? Because this with the animation capabilities we have today, this would be awesome. But imagine you're seeing it for the first time. No human has ever seen anything like this. This is absolutely new. The closest thing to it would have been from Egyptian mythology, but that's actually a different, and it's not a human, it's another god. Isis and Osiris. Seth hates Osiris because he's the god of life. Seth puts him in a boat and puts him into the Nile and tries to kill him. He dies, and then Isis, who is Osiris's wife and sister, gathers all the pieces together, and he comes back together. But now he has to rule in the underground. So the imagery is there, but this is actually the first time it's ever really happened. I prophesied as I was commanded, and breath came into them, and they stood on their feet, an extremely great army. Now somebody asked me, what army is this?
Army of the Dead from Lord of the Rings.
Now that would be an interesting way. That'd be an interesting way to see how this gets played out in literature, later literature. I don't know, but it's a big army. Okay, then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are all the house of Israel. So now, Ezekiel has no idea who these are, so he's now identified them. Because they are saying, our bones are dry, our hope has perished, we are cut off. That's again how central the idea of bones were to people. We are cut off. We are not in Yahweh's presence anymore. The problem is, it's a lie. It's really not true. Yeah.
When they say we're cut off, you're supposed to think Genesis 3, right? Of them being kicked from the garden?
That and also Cain. Yeah. You are not alive unless you're in the presence. Well, all of the Old Testament theology is the presence of Yahweh. That's it in a nutshell. That's what it's about. Here's part of what's going on, is that there's a connection between a god and a land. So a god has a temple somewhere, and it is literally called the house of God. Call that Beth El in Hebrew. Hint, hint, hint. Okay. So this god has a house and a kind of an area marked out. They have like a jurisdiction, like a county that they run or a state that they run. What happens when a god's temple is destroyed? For most people now, they have no connection to the land. They are done for. So the Babylonians are looking at the people of Israel and going, you know what? Our God's bigger than your God because we conquered your temple city and destroyed your temple. Your God is not real. But in the beginning of Ezekiel, we have this very amazing picture where God actually leaves Jerusalem and the temple and flies across. So Yahweh is a God. Is Yahweh a God who doesn't need a temple? Well, let's back up first. What is a temple? What's a temple do for you in the ancient mind? Both of you are right. It's where you meet a God. The deal is this, because the land can mean a land, but the same word in Hebrew, eretz means land, and it also means earth. The whole earth is Yahweh's land, and his temple is wherever he is. So he doesn't need an actual building. He does that as a kind of a concession to the Israelites. And then eventually you have Jesus basically saying, I'm the temple. If you tear this temple down, I'll rebuild it in 3 days. And they're going, because they're looking at him going, no, dude, the temple's over there. And he goes, no, actually, I'm the temple. It took about 70 years to build, yeah. So he's saying, no, I'm the temple. I'm where you meet with God. And then the real kicker is, now you're the temple. You are living stones, as Peter says. Y'all, you're the local Jesus. Hope you're up to that. So, okay, so in the ancient world, if my kingdom conquers your kingdom and I destroy your temple, I've destroyed your God. So the Babylonians are thinking, and the Israelites along with them, oh no, we're lost. We don't have our God anymore. And Ezekiel's whole experience is that no, I have not abandoned you. I'm right here. So almost literally one half of the book of Ezekiel is all of the things here, because you disobeyed, this is happening. Because you disobeyed, this is happening. Because you disobeyed, this is happening. And just before this passage, the whole story flips around and it becomes, you were unfaithful, but I'm faithful. You were unfaithful, but I am Yahweh. I am faithful, and I'm going to do something. I'm going to change. I'm going to bring about a change that nobody would have anticipated. Because death, well, I'll put it this way. Death is not the end. What God is telling Ezekiel is that death is a means to an end. It's not the end. It's a means to the end. Because there's going to be this crazy thing called resurrection. The very idea of this would have been we think, oh yeah, of course, yeah, resurrection, it's a thing. It wasn't a thing. It's a very radical, odd concept. The Greeks particularly didn't like this, and this became a problem for the church later on because the church was so caught up in Neoplatonism, the idea of, my gosh, I'm going to get a body back? Oh no. Yeah, you are. Because God loves heaven and earth, not just heaven. He loves them both. So you get this radical proposition. Then you will know that I am the Lord. When I open your graves and raise you from your graves, my people, I will place my breath in you and you will live. I will give you rest in your own land. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. I have spoken and I will act, declares the Lord. All right. We can go on from there. So how does this play out? Did you have your hand up?
No, I was just stretching.
Okay. Okay. All right. How do you... let's take a look at this. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this here. Okay, actually, no. I wrote it out because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to remember it, and actually I couldn't. So I wrote it out for you. So, okay. Ezekiel is the last of the old school prophets and the first of a new kind. He's actually put through a process that begins to make him into a new kind of human. He is a unique transitional figure who lives through the ultimate end of Israel's disobedience and personally experiences the bitter results of centuries of Israel's and Judah's institutionalized, depraved idolatry, national collapse, and exile. But God also makes Ezekiel a witness to and a participant in a whole new creation. Ezekiel follows Yahweh around and sees what is to come and actually participate in what God is going to do. It's called resurrection from the dead. This death and then new life will become the master pattern, the archetype of a new heaven and a new earth. And it had to start with someone. And it starts with Ezekiel. I'd be open to other, you get people that are starting in this direction. So let's take a look at that. So Daniel 12. When when scholars start to look at where does this thing resurrection come from, it appears that it just sort of pops into Jesus' head like, it's right there. But actually it has a history to it. So the first place it seems to really show up is Isaiah 26:19. Your dead will come back to life. Your corpses will rise. Wake up and shout joyfully, you who live in the ground. For you will grow like plants drenched with the morning dew, and the earth will bring forth its dead spirits. This actually happens in the New Testament. Where does it happen? See if you... It's the Gospel of John. Could it be Lazarus? This actually happens. So Lazarus isn't resurrected. He's resuscitated or rejuvenated. He comes back to the life that he had. It's not resurrection, but it's headed in the right direction. And there's this whole discussion between me. If you'd been here, Jesus, my brother wouldn't have died. He goes, but and do you believe I believe in resurrection? No, he says, I am the resurrection. And it makes no sense to her at all. It just bounces off her head, as it probably would, because what do you mean? Because the resurrection is so radical. All right, so the next passage where this comes in. All right, so this is.
Yep, last one was Isaiah.
Okay, why? Okay. There you go. No, it's not showing it. What is wrong here? I may have current. Okay, there we go. All right, let's go to this one. Okay. This is why having a Bible with the Apocrypha in it would be helpful for you, because the Old Testament ends about 300 to 400 years before the first book in the New Testament, depending on how you want to look at it, how you date things. But 1st and 2nd Maccabees have all kinds of juicy things in it because they show what God is doing and how people's thinking is starting to change. So example, 1 Maccabees 6:20, thus he, Matthias, said, therefore, my children, be zealous for the law and give your lives for the covenant of our ancestors. Remember the deeds of the ancestors and how they stood firm. They did not fail, thus they will rise again. What you have is these are people being persecuted by the Syrian ruler whose name is failing me. Antiochus, yeah. What's the first word? Epiphany the third. Yeah, anyway, okay. They're being tortured to death. And what they say, at this point, they already believe in the resurrection of the dead. It's already become a thing in God's people. 2nd Maccabees, this part of the account of the martyrdom, her mother and her son. So a whole family's tortured to death. And when he was about to die, he said, you accursed wretch, you dismiss us from the presence of life, but the King of the universe will raise us up to an everlasting renewal of life because we are dying for his laws. So they're already deeply convinced that resurrection is going to be a thing. And so now it's not just coming back to normal life, it's another kind of life. And when, another one, when he was near death, he said, it's good, my brothers, to die for the laws of our ancestors, for the King of the universe will raise up to everlasting life. So they're already convinced 200-ish years before Jesus comes along that there is this thing called the resurrection. It isn't something that the church invented. It isn't something that Jesus invented. It's already a deeply held belief. And you see now the roots of it. It starts with Ezekiel. You see it in Ezekiel. You see it in Isaiah. You see it in Maccabees. So it's there. It's an actual thing. And when we get to the life of Jesus, I'm actually going to jump to the New Testament because I think it's really important. So Ezekiel is this transitional person. He's old school prophet, but he's new because he speaks and stuff happens. And what he participates in is the beginning of what will become the resurrection. In this case, the bones come together, the flesh comes on, and what you get is a kind of rejuvenated person or reanimated. What you get by this point here is the idea of a whole new creation. And so, so let's talk about resurrection. Thought you'd never ask. Okay, resurrection does not mean coming back to life. It does not mean that. Everybody in the ancient world believed in a life after death. It wasn't very pleasant because you were either in Sheol or Hades. But you didn't come out of there. And there's little stories here and there where people seems like they came out, but they didn't. What you get in the New Testament, and this is from N.T. Wright, is life after death. What you see in Jesus is not a reanimated corpse. He's actually a different kind of thing. He appears to 500 people at one time. He appears to Paul. Paul says, I was like somebody born at the wrong time. I saw the risen Jesus. But he's able, one of my professors said, the resurrected Jesus could eat fish in one place, walk through a wall, but the fish would not stick to the wall as he walked through. He's a new kind of being. He's the first bit of new creation. So resurrection, think of it this way. In Genesis, you have this downward spiral of creation. It starts out good and beautiful, but because of the rebellion of both the earthly and the heavenly beings in God's creation, it starts to go bad. And so you get to the point in chapter 7 where God says, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to push the reset button. And what you get then is it goes back to water and earth, and then the earth emerges. And Noah is basically a kind of a new creation. The Gospel of John is the clearest on this. So when Jesus dies, takes all of death with him, and when he is resurrected, the first woman that sees him in a garden. Because he's actually the beginning of creation all over again. It's a new creation. So God is not stopped by death. He actually uses it to his own purposes. In a weird way, he kills death, which actually shows up in the book of Revelation. Death will die. So resurrection is this thing. Again, Ezekiel begins to see it. It does. In his mind, it sort of bounces off his head. And on one level, it is hope for Israel. This is not the end. You abandoned me. I haven't abandoned you. I'm going to bring you back to your homeland. And then you have these incredible pictures. Remember, if you read this, he sees this gigantic temple. And out of the temple, there's this water that comes out. And it starts out knee deep. And pretty soon, he's up to his neck. Because water represents life. So God's going to do something where there'll be a new place to meet God, and there'll be a kind of life coming out of this that's hard to even imagine. And that is what happens in the church. That's how it gets fulfilled. Because the symbolism is carried over there. The life of Jesus, so he dies, he is the seed that goes into the ground, and when he comes back, he's a whole new thing. And that life is then given to you. It's partly given to you, and partly you have to grow into it. But it's a life after death. And then are you guys going to be here for tomorrow for First Thessalonians? Because that's okay. Because instead of all of creation being resurrected at once, you have one person, Jesus, being resurrected, and then later it's all the rest of us, everybody. So that's, but this is where it starts. It starts here in Ezekiel. He's the pivotal character. He goes from being the prophet who brings the word of the Lord to the prophet who performs the word of the Lord. And that's for you too, because you will be in places where there's dry bones. It'll be your dry bones or somebody else's, and you'll be called upon to speak the word of the Lord. How about that? Okay, stand up. I'll let you go. So we're 2 minutes over. So. Mm. Lord, we are like Adam and Eve. We're called to be your agent. We cannot help but bring heaven to earth, but we don't want to bring disorder. We want to bring your order, your new life. Lord, in the places where we're experiencing dry bones, where things are just seem really dead, you're going to show us how to speak life. And you want us to do that. You call on us to do that. You've made us to do that. And my prayer for my brothers and sisters is as they meditate on this incredible story, it will deeply impress on them their role now as your people who prophesy life to the world, whatever world they're in. This we ask in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And everybody said, amen.